About Beer receives underwriting support from Full Steam Brewing. They understand the importance of independent journalism in the beer space, and their support helps fund original work. Learn how you can affordably support journalists by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support.
Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl. This is a fun episode today, talking about recreating historical beer recipes and what the past might be able to teach us about brewing today. First, keep up with all the events we have going on and more by following our social media. We're at All About Beer across all of the major platforms. And if you have comments, guest suggestions, or just want to reach out, you can always email me at johnholl, that's JOHNHOLL, at allaboutbeer.com. We are also supported by you. Please go to allaboutbeer.com/support and learn how just a few bucks can have a huge impact in supporting original journalism in the beer space. And on that note, thanks to this episode's sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Stomp Stickers. Stomp is built for the business community, serving everyone from small independents to larger franchises. Whether you need low minimums for a limited batch or bulk pricing for your go-to products, they've got you covered. Join thousands of breweries that trust Stomp for their custom printing needs. Go to stompstickers.com and try them out and score 15% off of your first order with the code FIRSTRUN.
Shed 60-Minute IPA is a fantastically hoppy India Pale Ale that's beautifully balanced thanks to their unique continual hopping method. Delivering a pungent hop flavor that isn't crushingly bitter, 60-Minute is continually hopped throughout the boil for a full 60 minutes. Starting to see where the name comes from? Check out dogfish.com to learn more and to find some 60-Minute near you. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
Beer 30 by The Fifth Ingredient is the ultimate command center. The most powerful brewery management software on the market, Beer 30 handles the entire brewing workflow, from recipe development to production. Once your beer is brewed and ready, it seamlessly manages your inventory and streamlines your brewery's sales and distribution, all in the same easy-to-use platform. Beer 30 lets you get back to the beer and to the people that made you fall in love with this industry in the first place. And no other brewery management software gives you the ability to truly master your business and get the insights that you need to thrive in an increasingly competitive industry. Visit thefifthingredient.com/allaboutbeer today to learn more and receive 3 free months of Beer 30. A few weeks ago, a press release came across my desk touting a brewery in Virginia that had brewed an English-style strong pale ale with yeast harvested from a 1903 bottle of Bass King Ale. The brewery behind the beer is called Dynasty, and it's in Ashburn. The brewer, Favio Garcia, has turned out quite a few historical beers over the last few years, focusing on places, people, and ingredients popular at the time. To achieve this, he's been working with the beer historians at Lost Lagers, Michael Stein and Peter Jones. All three jumped on a Zoom call to talk about their relationship, the evolution of brewing, and how they are working to keep history alive, interesting, and tasty. Here's our conversation. Thanks to you three for being here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing, and I want to unpack it all and get into histories and flavors and the challenges. But I want to start with just each of your individual groups because finally I have to say 10,000 breweries in the country. It's tough to keep track of everybody. And when I was made aware of this program, Dynasty Brewing was new to me. So what's the elevator pitch? What's the quick hello that you make at parties about Dynasty and what you're doing?
Wow. Yeah, so Dynasty started 7 years ago. It's myself and 2 other partners, Michelle and Travis. I'm the day-to-day brewer operations guy, so they're making all the beer. It's a pretty small operation. We got about 6,000 square feet, a 10-barrel brew house, which we bought used from a rock bottom in Seattle. So it's a very manual, labor-intensive brew house, but it makes some great beer. Yeah, we make about 500 barrels a year. Sell about half of that to the tap room. The other goes through distribution. We got some really good accounts, and one of them is being Mount Vernon. They asked us a few years ago to for some beer, and then I was like, "Oh, you could just white label it from somebody else." They're like, "No, no, we want our own recipes. So guys, can you look into doing some historical type beers?" Um, at that point, Mike already had kind of been involved a little bit, um, so we kind of pursued that. And it's been very nice to have like a nice steady account and give us a lot of freedom in what to do.
I'll bet.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. We have a second location. We're just outside Washington, D.C. We're about 30 miles outside Washington, D.C., near Dulles Airport, if anybody's familiar with the D.C. area. So that's where it's a warehouse brewery in a warehouse corridor. But then we have a little tap room in Leesburg, which is like a much older town. It's like a historic downtown area. So we have a nice little tap room there. Things are going okay, but I guess the future of our Ashburn breweries is it's up in the air a little bit. We're trying to figure out what we want to do this coming year. Um, just the brewing business has been tough for the last few years, and we kind of want to downsize a little bit and just keep our Leesburg place and hopefully pass on our Ashburn location to someone else or partner up with another brewery just to keep things going, as it were. But
It's tough out there these days, as
yeah,
referenced by most of the conversations I'm having. So I know where you're coming from.
yeah,
So you referenced Michael Stein, who is here. Um,
hmm
you and Pete are the guys, the president and CEO behind Lost Loggers, which I dig. Uh, I've been following this for a little while, but I'm excited to talk to you about this because I think it's such a cool project. But sort of jump ball to either of you. I don't know in your
Sure.
corporate structure who outranks if president reports to the CEO or vice versa. But yeah,
I love reporting to Pete because without the CEO, the president would not be kept in line in a unique organizational structure and flowchart. But but I'll take this jump ball and say that Lost Loggers is DC's premier beverage research firm. What does that mean? Well, that means we have clients that we like to brew historic beers with. In this case, it was a really unique client that Mount Vernon was interested in having unique beers for George Washington's Mount Vernon's gift shop. And the idea actually came from a woman at Mount Vernon. Her name is Susan. And Susan actually came to Mount Vernon from Colonial Williamsburg. She had had great success with a historic line of beers in Colonial Williamsburg. And I think she had moved from Williamsburg to the DC metro area. So for those listeners unfamiliar, we are in DC proper in metropolitan DC, and then Williamsburg is a bit south of us. But both are historic sites, and she got my name from Frank Clark, who is a fellow member in the League of Historians at the Beer Culture Center. So Frank put her in touch with me, and the rest, they say, is history, or I should say, is modern, because we took some history and infused it into 21st century beers.
I like that. And I mean, there's such a richness of beer history in the US from those early days. And there's that, romantic vision that people have of some of the founding fathers being brewers, which I think has roundly been debunked as, them making the beers themselves versus, either the slaves or the workers on their various properties. But like, when you think back, or when you started looking at some of these recipes or finding some of these recipes, and working with some of these historical organizations, what surprised you both? What were some things that you know, as history buffs, as guys who like beer, um, what surprised you? What got you excited and furthered the research?
Sure. So, Susan Hoffman at Mount Vernon, I think one thing that surprised me was how wide a latitude she gave us, and that, Mount Vernon gave us in particular, as far as styles of beer, um, stories we wanted to tell about the beer. So, a good example would be one of the recipes we used. What came from Eliza Smith's the complete housewife and guide, basically the first book that was published in America that was not the Bible, happened to be a cookbook that was for, the colonial housewife. And as part of the colonial housewife's duties was making strong ale. And so this was the basis for our recipes. And of course, hops were included in it. But one of the other bittering ingredients was actually rosemary. So I think the beer turned out quite nicely. It depends on how much you like rosemary. I thought it was Favio used the proper amount. Opinions definitely varied, but selling a rosemary beer in a gift shop to just sort of the general public and people who are definitely not really necessarily beer people was a decision that they allowed us to go. So that's certainly one thing that was surprising in this process. It's really nice.
Yeah,
we got the rosemary. We got the rosemary from the gardens at Mount Vernon, which was great. You got the master gardener harvested some rosemary for us. But the recipe itself called for rosemary flowers, so that's a very specific window, especially in the Mid-Atlantic. So we didn't get as many flowers as we wanted, so I think it was pretty strongly flavored rosemary. So that's going to be back on our brewing schedule at some point where we can talk to the gardener a little bit more. Actually, when we get more flowers than just the rosemary itself. But
Well,
that recipe is crazy because it also called for egg whites and things like that. But
did you use that as well? Because that brings up an interesting point,
no,
right?
We did not.
Didn't. Okay. Because when you go back and look at some of these older recipes, which are essentially, rudimentary homebrew recipes in some ways, and might leave stuff out or just, leave stuff up to intuition and all of that. And when you put them on a professional 10-barrel modern system, there's a nod to history, but it's also, as you said, Mike, at some point, it's modern, it's, and so where's the balance there between historical accuracy, homage, modern beer, like that kind of thing? Like, I don't even know where you'd put egg whites into a recipe, but, I mean, I'm curious. Yeah.
It's a fine line, certainly. I think I'm pretty cerebral pie in the sky, and then between Favio and Pete, they help talk me down from the 10,000-foot level to no, we're brewing this tomorrow. We need to, because the research, the amount of rabbit holes you could go down are endless. And it's egg whites, okay, but then egg shells for clarity. Should we consider egg shells? No, Stein, that's insane. So a lot of the times it's presenting the comprehensive picture, and then reading historic context. What was the brewer's intent? What was this beer supposed to taste like? Okay, so are we missing any prime flavored delivery without egg whites? And, the answer was no, so they're omitted. But it's also rosemary. So strong ale with rosemary could have been, John, you had mentioned sort of, a lot of these recipes are effectively homebrew. Would this have been known by every house on the block, not the block, but around the cul-de-sac, whatever.
Yeah.
Was this the IPA of its day, or what was it? And you really need to read a bunch of text and look at historical context to fully understand.
And there's also, I guess, something that comes with having had homebrew in the past, even modern homebrew, where, there's some really good ones and then there's not so good ones, and then having professional beer and all of that. When you are making some of these beers that, nod to history, you also want people to buy it, and you want people, if you have it on tap at the pub, or you're selling it in the gift shop, you want people to come back over and over again. And so making sure that it tastes right, maybe not historically accurate, I imagine plays a role as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like the big one, Favio, I'll let you talk about Virginia Porter in a second, but I was just going to say, we opted for Virginia Porter that was not vatted for months and was not secondary in wooden casks with Brettanomyces. But I'll let Favio tell you a little bit about Virginia Porter.
It's basically, we were, this, how true that there's some historical record that George Washington imported porter from London until the start of the war. And then he was buying some porter from Philadelphia. I mean, these guys can clear up. The historians can tell me where I'm wrong on that. But we created a London porter with Virginian malts. So there's a great malting company in Charlottesville, Murphy and Rood. So it's Virginia grown barley. It's malted in Charlottesville, and then we're a few hours away from that. So he's got some great roasted barley and black barley. So some fantastic flavor. So I get people are like, "Oh, I love this porter, it's so good." It's like, but it's really this maltster chef from Murphy and Rood that's created this awesome crystal malts and dark malts and things like that. But anyway, it's a London porter brewed with Virginia ingredients, and that's a Virginia's porter, and that's one of our mainstays for Mount Vernon. When John, to your point, is like something that's sellable at the pub. They do have a restaurant there at the Mount Vernon Inn, and we just kind of went for. It was pretty much my decision. I just went for like an English bitter, not Colonial at all, just a classic English bitter. It does give us an opportunity to try different yeast strains. We have a friend who runs an yeast lab, Jasper, and Travis runs Jasper Yeast Labs, and then they have quite a selection of English strains. So with a beer like the English bitter, we get to try those English strains out and see which ones we like. So that's been a fun project as well. So even though we're kind of making a classic, amber ale, we do get to try different strains of yeast. I mean, nothing goes as far back as colonial times, but the most recent one we did was with a 1903 Bass Ale strain.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Can you kind of dive into that one a little bit?
Well, I mean, I can just say, like, on the brewing side of things, it's kind of interesting that sometimes we try these strains out. Sometimes I'll try we'll brew a 10 barrel batch, and then we'll go from a 10, just pull some off for a half barrel, and then we can see like, oh, we kind of like this flavor. We'll do a 10 barrel batch, and that seems to work a lot better because sometimes I was like, sure, I'll just give it a shot and get a 10 barrel pitch. And some of these ale strains are used to open fermentation. They do not like the conical fermenter, especially the fermenters we have are 20 barrel fermenters. They're extremely tall. They're, like I said, they're in a brew pub. So they're really skinny, and they do not like that fermented type at all. It just kind of stalls out. You need a wide open fermentation. I mean, open tank. So that's sometimes a challenge for these ale strains, just to kind of, just throw it in and see what happens. And then you got to kind of clean it up at some point. But sometimes it doesn't ferment all the way out like we want to. But as far as the strain itself, that's more of a Jasper question. I don't know. He found it in a bottle somewhere, and he likes doing that. I'm not sure. He just has it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, from what I understand from Jasper, it was collected from bottle of Bass King's Ale from 1902, which was brewed to commemorate the visiting of the Bass Brewery in Port-Trent by the King of England at the time, and so they brewed a special beer for him, um, and it kind of coincidentally, this year, 2025, is the 200th anniversary of General Lafayette revisiting Virginia and specifically Leesburg just in early August here. And so it was kind of like, oh, this is brewed for the king visiting the brewery. Let's brew this, small, one, I think it was one barrel of beer to commemorate Lafayette visiting Virginia. And so that was kind of last week was, I think it was Friday, the 6th of August. Thereabouts
You guys put it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, put it out and had a big, event in Leesburg. It's Lafayette.
Yeah. I mean, I've been out drinking with Michael before. So, and I imagine you all try a bunch of beers. When you're having a beer that has yeast that is 120 plus years old, in there, were there any discernible flavors? Was there anything that sort of
it's
peaked?
it's phenolic. I mean, it's really phenolic. Kind of the smoky character to it. So we were able to try. We had the bitter with that Bass strain from, and then we had like a Yorkshire strain, it's a much cleaner strain, side by side. So it's kind of interesting. That experiment itself is interesting. So yeah, it's more phenolic, kind of has a spiciness to it. I guess some cases might be an off flavor, but for an English ale, it kind of fits perfectly. It's a lot of people, like we had the customers loved. We have the bitter on cask at the tap room all the time. So we just have a firkin on in a beer engine, and it was noticeable when I put it on. People were like, "What is this?" It's like it tastes different. I was like, "Yeah." But after a couple sips, the bitter drinkers really enjoyed it. It was just like, "Wow, it's different, but I like it." Right? So it's a different flavor. Like I said, phenolic, kind of spiciness to it, a little smokiness to it.
Yeah, I would say from the flavor perspective, Favio, we had the bitter without the 1905 yeast, and then did it side by side, and right out of the glass you could tell. The bitter without it was, like a study in malt and bread doneness, right? So like little pumpernickel, little sourdough, just like really nice breadiness. The 1905 yeast was like, boom, ripe fruit. It was way fruitier. And Favio was talking about phenolics. So one thing Jasper had mentioned to us is that it's POF positive. So POF, P-O-F, stands for phenolic off flavors.
Mm-hmm.
People often use that to describe, Hefeweizen, like German Hefeweizens, or sometimes Saison, or, styles of beer that you expect to be fruity and smell of ripe fruits. This was very much that way, just like right out of the glass before you put it to your lips.
That's so cool. So as you guys have been doing this and finding recipes and trying to bring them to people that want to taste these, Fabio, at the beginning you sort of mentioned the weird times that we're in for beer, and there's always a push towards what's new or what's exciting, or people just want something that is bland and reliable. What has reading through these old recipes taught you, if anything, about modern brewing? And then Michael and Peter, same question to you after Favio there. Favio, do we lose you?
Things interesting, keep it new. Yeah, I mean, we were on the hazy train for a while, right? So we had like a new hazy coming out every 2 weeks, but that got boring. So this is actually the whole exploring the different yeast strains, I'm finding more and more fascinating. I always enjoyed it. I mean, I think that's why kind of like this project with Mount Vernon and other historical projects I find so interesting. But to be able to do that, to explore more of those yeast strains, I'm really looking forward to doing that. So that's going to be just a kind of a regular thing for us moving forward. We have another beer, Wales Pale Ale, named after Andrew Wales. He's a Scottish brewer that brewed out of Alexandria, Virginia, and George Washington brought beer from just down the road from Mount Vernon. But so it's a, for the regular one, it's a Scottish ale strain. But yeah, tried a different ale strain, another English strain for just a keg or two, just to see how that goes, and I'd like to do more of that. So just compare the two worts, the same wort, different flavors coming out of it. That's going to be our thing going on in the future, just to have something new all the time. And hopefully we'll get some people. I think there's some people interested in that kind of stuff. But it's not a huge amount at this point that they want to come in and try the two different nails, for example. But
yeah. So Michael and Peter, though, you guys are out there, you're educating, you're talking to folks, and you're obviously getting people, who I guess are history buffs, but maybe also just beer drinkers. And then there's got to be a Venn diagram that you all have of who's interested in what you're doing. But, what have you learned? Again, sort of same question, not necessarily, practical brewing, but what have you learned from reading up on these historical recipes and these folks who made them and everything, that you feel sort of relates to today? Or, yeah.
Well, first of all, I am so happy that Favio, invited us into his brew house to work on these beers together. I think it speaks to kind of the curiosity he has in using these old recipes and, unique ingredients, unique yeast strains. And, he's willing to kind of go with some of Mike and I's ideas that, may not be the most economical to get some posh Scottish malt or Wales Pale Ale, because he was, a Scottish brewer in Alexandria. But so we definitely appreciate that he's willing to do that. But going through some of these old recipes and then trying to translate them into modern equipment, certainly their understanding of the most up-to-date brewing science was not the same as ours. But to be honest, a lot of it really does follow logically. So even if they're not, counting cells under the microscope, they're doing things to limit infections and bad off flavors. And so even if a recipe kind of looks on its face like it may not make sense, the Eliza Smith's strong ale, for example, we brewed it and I thought it turned out really nicely. As Favio said, the opinions on rosemary may vary, but the beer itself I thought was really nice, just sort of going, shooting from the hip. And some of our other projects involve the Christian Hire Brewing Company here in DC, and I think we've had a lot of great luck with their beers, especially recreating those beers, remaking those beers. But Mike, what do you think of it?
Yeah, Mike, let's jump in here.
It's a great question, John. And this is going to sound counterintuitive, but in some ways, so much has changed from the 18th century to the 21st century, and brewing is entirely different today. But on the flip side of the coin, brewing is pretty similar in the foundation. Like you have hot, you have boil, you have cool, you have fermentation. And obviously cans didn't come around until the 1930s, but short of the cans, there's a lot of similarities. And I think I'll use this point to talk greater sort of about some of the historical research Pete and I have done. Thomas Jefferson thought his beer was so good, he was talking shit on the public house brewers. He said, my beer has more bushels of malt and hops than the public house. But of course, the irony behind that is we know that one of his brewers famously was Peter Hemmings. So even his ownership of my beer was a little stolen valor on the part of Jefferson. And Hemmings doesn't get the credit. And sadly, I would never name names, but like when you go somewhere and they're like, this is my beer, and it's like, oh, like you brew this? Well, no. Like, oh, you cellared this? No. You packaged this? No. So there is a labor component to it where I think it's so important. And that's why Pete and I love talking to brewers, and we hold a special place in our heart for Favio because he really walks the walk. He is the head brewer, the lead brewer, the director of production, but he's also just a brewer's brewer. He loves beer flavored beer, and he loves learning about history. And we've been grateful to have him outside of brewing beer for the general public, having a really wonderful collaborator on these historic beer projects.
So you both do, Mike and Peter, various events and lectures and talks, and I like that you have all of the quotes keyed up and ready to go. And you all were telling me before we started you've done various talks and TV segments and everything in period attire. So for those who are venturing down into the DC area these days, or wherever you may be, what's the best way for them to find out what you're doing, where you're doing it, and how they can be a part of it?
Sure. So I'd say the most up-to-date place would be Las Lagers on Instagram. We also have a very, very occasional newsletter that will come out if we have, some bigger events coming up. And I would say check the Hyrick House Museum. That's where we do a lot of our work related to the Hyrick House, or related to the Christian Hyrick Brewing Company and reviving his 19th century and 20th century beers. They have a little museum that talks about some of the beers and some of the work research that we did. And it's a beautiful Victorian era house, great house museum, great tours. Their beer garden is open much of the week. So that's a great spot to have some of our beers. And then, of course, Mount Vernon's gift shop, or George Washington beers. The Rules of Civility series are on sale there, and at Dynasty Brewing.
Yeah.
Both Ashland and Leesburg.
Which, Favio, if people want to find you all, where do they do that? We might have lost Favio again. I imagine Dynasty Brewing, in fact, I'm looking it up right now, is on the social medias. They have the website. So you can find them on there. If he pops back up, I will ask him this question as well. But Michael and Peter, I've been asking this question on the show for a while now, and it's based on the television show The Good Place, where in the final season they introduce a concept of the green door, where the characters can walk through it and be wherever they want, doing whatever they want. So if we had a green door on our plane of existence and this conversation ended and you could walk through it and be at any pub or any brewery anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? Who would you want to be with? And what would you like to be drinking? Let's start with you, Mike.
Oh, that's a good one. Can it be from the...
This is your answer. I put no qualifiers on this.
20th or 19th century?
Again, this is you're stalling.
Okay, I am. So I would say it would be in the 19th century, and it would be in Charlottesville, Virginia, with Peter Hemmings. And Hemmings was, an enslaved brewer at Monticello. But he was actually purchased by one of his relatives in the late 50s. And I don't have a tavern, but I would love to sit down with Peter Hemmings in Charlottesville and be like, hey, man, I'm going to be arguing with internet trolls 200 years from now. Tell me about the beer you brewed and tell me about all of the beer that exists in Virginia right now. Like, I would love an oral history with a brewer from the 19th century, and then disappear immediately following one round, because obviously, it would be hard to exist in the 19th century for long.
Understood.
Yeah, so that's me, Charlottesville, 1815 or 1820 with Peter Hemmings.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, great question. I think talking about the Christian Hire Brewing Company makes me think of in the House Museum they have in the basement Christian Heinrich's beer Stube, and I think it would be so much fun to have a Märzen, which was Christian's favorite beer, with the man himself, play some cards. Maybe have some of my relatives from bygone eras there that were contemporary to his time. I think it would be really really interesting. And so I'm going to go with the 19th century instead of the 18th century. Mike's
Okay.
earlier period.
Favio, you're back with us? He was here and then he wasn't here, and I think the internet is acting like it's in
Fabio, unmute yourself.
the 1800s again. But
there he is. I'm back on. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I dropped out for a second, but I got the question. And I think
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with the same vein. I'll think of Alexandria, Virginia, and then we talked about Andrew Wales, and then I'll have to hang out with that guy and see where he was getting his malt from or his grains from. Brewery was right on the waterfront in Alexandria. It's just like a street name. There's a alleyway named after him. But I'd love to be inside that little brewery and find out where he was getting his ingredients from and who was. There's still some taverns in Alexandria that have been around since colonial days, so you can pick any of those and hang out in and drink what his beers were like. I mean, we kind of just imagined what he was making because there's no real much historical record of what survived after so many fires. That's one of the problems that we have. Is things burn down a lot for breweries.
Also,
the guys mentioned Heinrich House, and that Christian Heinrich built his castle, his mansion there was basically concrete and brick, so it wouldn't burn down after many fires.
Yeah, fool me once. Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig that. Guys, to the three of you, thanks for doing what you're doing. Thanks for keeping these beers going and bringing history to life in fun ways, and giving us something to think about as beyond Citra and Mosaic these days. So I'm grateful for your time. I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, and thanks for being on the show this week.
Thanks for having us, John.
Thanks, John.
Make sure you join the This Week in Rauch Beer group on Facebook, or follow at TW Rauch Beer on Instagram. And as always, you can reach me anytime on email at John Holl, that's JOHNHOLL, at allaboutbeer.com. Also, go visit allaboutbeer.com. You can check out new content. Andy Crouch, by the way, has a great article column up right now about why we need new generations of beer bars opening up. So you can read that, which is brand new, as well as the archives, which go all the way back to 1979. Follow All About Beer on social media at All About Beer. And here's a word from this week's sponsors. StompStickers.com is loaded with features to make ordering a breeze. They save all your artwork and order history, so restocking your bestsellers is just a click away. Oh, and did we mention free shipping on every order? Try Stomp Stickers today and snag 15% off of your first order with the code FIRSTRUN.
Calling all hopheads. Dogfish Head 60-Minute IPA is a fantastically hoppy India Pale Ale that's beautifully balanced thanks to their unique continual hopping method. Delivering a pungent hop flavor that isn't crushingly bitter, 60 Minute is continually hopped throughout the boil for a full 60 minutes. Starting to see where the name comes from? Check out dogfish.com to learn more and to find some 60 Minute near you. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
If you're running a brewery, owner or operator, Beer 30 by the Fifth Ingredient is the ultimate command center. The most powerful brewery management software on the market, Beer 30 handles the entire brewing workflow, from recipe development to production. Once your beer is brewed and ready, it seamlessly manages your inventory and streamlines your brewery's sales and distribution, all in the same easy-to-use platform. Beer 30 lets you get back to the beer and to the people that made you fall in love with this industry in the first place. And no other brewery management software gives you the ability to truly master your business and get the insights that you need to thrive in an increasingly competitive industry. Visit thefifthingredient.com/allaboutbeer today to learn more and receive 3 free months of Beer 30. If you go to the All About Beer podcast channel, you can hear other great audio shows such as Brew to Brew and the All About Beer podcast with Don Tess and M. Sauter. Find that on your podcast platform of choice. Steal This Beer, currently airing episodes straight out of Florida for the next couple of weeks. That has new episodes every Monday. And the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. This latest episode for August has a preview of what's happening with the 2025 hop crop in North America. As for this show, Nate Weber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer.